Hey gang, welcome back. It is I, DrBossKey, and today we're answering a question on how to hide the player character when you want to do something like a cutscene or other things. So why don't we hop over to it? And thank you for the question. Are you okay? So, of course, we got this old school, right? So basically, I'll just fire it up here. So this is the start of one of our levels, the tutorial level in this case.
Captain's log.
And I'll do it one more time. So you can basically consider like the very start of my level as a cutscene. And in this case, we have the player ship that flies in and then flies out, and we actually do a few things. So never mind this bug here. This will be fixed in the next version of the engine. This is just particles that are attached to the player with the effects. The FX gameplay object are not hidden when you call hide on the player character. So what happens here is that so the ship flies through, and then the player character is then deposited behind the ship. So it's pretty easy to do this. So what we have here is at the beginning of our level. In this case, you can trigger it different ways. So this is the way we set it up. Is you start with the player control object. The player control object, in our case, I want it to stay active. I don't need it to switch multiple times. And we're going to do a few things. So we're going to hide the player. We're going to freeze the controls so the player can't control the player when they're hidden. And we're going to hold fire because we also don't want the player to be able to fire just by pushing buttons during this thing, during the opening sequence. And then we do a couple things. So then we have a timer. In our case, it's just 1.8 seconds because that's about the right time that we want the game to be, the player to be visible and active. So we start a timer here that starts at level load, and then we come back to the player control, so you can see it here. And then what you should know, the important part here is that these are toggle states, right? So the first one is that we enable these checkboxes, these bools, to make these things true. And then 1.8 seconds later, we come back to player control, and then we in our case, we're going to continue to keep them all hidden, and then we're going to move the player character position to these XY coordinates. And I think you look here, so that's this right here. You can see the XY coordinates here. And this is just, in our case, we have a move, right? So make sure I don't save. And then approximately 1.1 seconds later, we come back to the player control, because now that we've moved it, and then we want to make sure nothing is checked, because this then re-enables everything. So if you enable it, it disables these things, these items, which you can see here, and then you can re-enable it. You could also enable invincibility in case you have like bullets or whatever it may be for your cutscenes. But that's the gist of it. So and you can see it here logic-wise.
Captain's
that's it
log.
right there.
I'm placing the veil.
Yep. Short and sweet. I hope that's helpful. Thanks, everybody.